Shelby Church, this is my first time seeing you on YouTube, and in fact, kind of first time seeing a video on somebody quitting Airbnb. Now, my name is Blake Rocha. I go by Mr. 4-8, and I run a $3.4 million per year Airbnb business. You said that you're quitting Airbnb, and I'm not gonna make this video to poke fun at you or take any digs. In fact, what I want to do is give you some constructive criticism and let this be a public video for other people and give some advice on what I would have done to change things or fix things or which direction I would have headed, because as a lot of people have been thinking Airbnb is dead, I've continued to build and scale my portfolio and help hundreds of other people do so as well. So without further ado, let's dive into this video. Again, I have not seen this at all. This is my first time seeing it, and I'm gonna kind of pick it apart.
You saw the title right. I'm quitting Airbnb. No, it's not clickbait. It just doesn't make sense anymore. So today I'll get into why I'm quitting, what the last straw was for me, and what I'm planning on doing with this house now. As you guys know, hosting on Airbnb wasn't as profitable as I expected, but it was a generally good experience. But something changed recently, and it is the nail on the coffin for Airbnbs in California. It's a new bill that's introducing an additional 15% tax anytime you go to book an Airbnb in California. It's called SB 584, and they're rushing to get this into effect by 2025. So this is a big deal because anytime you go to book a hotel or a short-term rental, you're already taxed a transient occupancy tax, and it's usually around 10%. It's a little different in each city. You can see it's usually 10%. And this new unprecedented tax is on top of the transient occupancy tax.
All right, first and foremost, yes, what she's talking about, it is actually happening. They're pushing this bill, but what she mentioned is, in 2025 is when they're pushing to get it done. We're filming this in December. This gives you at least a year and probably even 2 years to be able to figure out a better plan of what you would like to do with this Airbnb. It sounds like you only have one Airbnb property. I was looking at the revenue. It looked like $5,500 per month in revenue. You haven't said where it's at yet. It looks like Palm Springs or Joshua Tree. I live in California, so I'm used to seeing this. But if the numbers weren't making sense, and hopefully she gets into explaining the numbers, then that's one thing. That's one reason to quit Airbnb. But I don't think that's necessarily the full case here. What it sounds like to me is the property actually wasn't as profitable as they had penciled it out to be, and they probably purchased the property in 2020 through 2022, which is when the Joshua Tree and Palm Desert market absolutely exploded. Prices were way too high, and it's not, personally, I would not have invested there at all. But if that's the case, they're probably getting out of this business because they're not making any profit, not because of this new tax that is coming into play. But let's dive a little bit deeper.
On its own, the TOT tax brings in a lot of money for Palm Springs. In 2023, it's estimated to be about $50 million. So hotels and short-term rentals bring in a ton of money for our city. It's the biggest revenue source. And additionally, Airbnbs are taxed on any profit that they make as well. So it's not like Airbnbs aren't paying taxes. But still, SB 584 is presenting a tax like I've never seen before, like higher than the TOT tax. That's kind of wild. So this is good news to a lot of people because I know a lot of you guys now hate Airbnb. And I get it. The tax money is to go.
I don't get it. I don't know why you guys hate Airbnb. There's absolutely no reason to hate Airbnb. Now, you can make excuses like, oh, well, there's cleaning fees and oh, there's this and that. But at the end of the day, the people that are traveling to Airbnbs are not necessarily people that would have been staying at hotels instead. And in fact, if you ever go through and look at a breakdown of what you're paying for your hotel room, they're mixing in their cleaning fees. They're mixing in a lot of miscellaneous fees. So renting an Airbnb, let's just say you got a 6-bedroom house and you have 3 or 4 families coming or whatever it may be, when you chop it up between everybody, many times it is actually much cheaper to stay at an Airbnb, including the cleaning fees and including any other, BS miscellaneous fees you may be paying. It is actually cheaper in a lot of different cases.
Towards building affordable housing units. Currently, the city only spends $3 million of their budget on an affordable housing reserve. Most of the money goes to general government and the police. It all sounds really great in theory, but will it actually work? And what am I gonna do with my house? Let's get into it. First, we need to look at how this affects if you were to book my house. Right now in November, it's kind of the slower season, so it's $575 a night. You end up paying $328 in taxes, so the reservation total is around $3,300. Now in 2025,
just so you guys understand what we're looking at here with the price details, the only number that matters on this screen here is how much they're charging per night, because the cleaning fee is a wash fee, right? The cleaning fee is $325, and the guest is paying that because as Airbnb hosts, that's what we pay our cleaners. That's their rate. So this is a wash fee. It's not coming out of our pocket. And then the Airbnb service fees and taxes, right? None of that money is going to us as an Airbnb host.
This whole thing goes into effect. It's gonna make it so that the taxes you pay are $749. So the total reservation goes from $3,300 to $3,745. The amount that you're paying in taxes is now more than the amount that you'd be paying for one night staying here. That's crazy. And the thing is, hotels don't have to enforce this tax. So whenever you go to California and stay in a hotel, you just pay the TOT tax, which is usually around 10%, depends on the city. So if you're a group of like 4 friends, I just don't see why you would ever stay in an Airbnb. It doesn't make sense. You're automatically gonna get a 15% discount by staying in a hotel. I mean, if I was looking to book a place in Palm Springs and I didn't own my house, I wouldn't book it. I would not book it if I had to pay.
I completely disagree here. To save 15% would much rather stay in a hotel. It's simply not true. If you've ever been to Palm Springs and you've ever been to Joshua Tree, any of these types of areas, one of the reasons why people go out there, especially like younger people and couples and things like that, they're out there because they want privacy, they want their own house, they want their own pool. Many times that 15% is going to be negligible. The other thing that's interesting is just this bill hasn't even passed yet. So to say that that's what it is or what it's going to be, and when they're still discussing, they haven't determined when it's even going to come into action, to me is a little bit of, again, it's preemptive. And in my opinion, I think that what we're going to get to in this video, and I could be completely wrong, is that this Airbnb is just not penciling out number-wise and profit-wise. For example, across my portfolio, I do on average about 22% is my cash-on-cash return across all of my properties. And so there would never ever be any reason for me to get out of any of these properties unless they were just like a laggard, right? Something that's making like 10% and it was just completely unexpected. But I don't have any of these properties right now. I'm sure that it may happen in the future, but I'm guessing they're just not making enough profit on this property.
Pay 15% more? Like, are you crazy? Who would do that? Unless you absolutely need a house and you need the privacy, maybe you're like a 6-person group, but no.
Okay, one more thing. This house is in Palm Springs, right? I think she said Palm Springs. Between the month, I want to say when is Coachella? Is it May or June? That month of Coachella and Stagecoach, which is 3 weekends in a row, which is it ends up being like 3 weeks in a row because people come out on Wednesday and they stay through Sunday. They come out on Wednesday, stay through Sunday. There is literally not enough supply of properties for the demand of people that are coming into town. So I know multiple people, 10 plus people that have properties there that literally pay off their whole year, their annual mortgage, and all their expenses on those 3 weeks. Again, something is just not checking out here.
Keep in mind, this is a bill that is being passed all across California. It's not just Palm Springs. So if you're ever going to book an Airbnb in San Diego in 2025, I mean, just look at hotels. Just don't even bother anymore, honestly. That's my thoughts on it. So for me, this is the last straw. I think it'll just make it too tough to compete with hotels. But I'm actually not selling my house. I came up with a different plan for a number of reasons, and that is to turn it into a long-term rental. That is my plan in 2025. I'm 99% sure at this point that that's what I'm gonna do, although I will take the first month or 2 of the year and see how it is. I'll see if people are still booking, but I just don't think it makes sense. Like,
if the property's good, they're still going to be booking. I promise you it makes sense. Now, this is a really interesting kind of turn of events. Again, this is my first time seeing this video. I thought that she was gonna be selling the property based on the thumbnail that had like a for sale sign. I don't think that this is a terrible option to long-term rent it. Just depends on the price they purchased the property at, you know, the average rate of rent right now. Because if you're only making a couple $100s per month and, you know, maybe they bought this in 2021 and maybe the prices have gone up, I would really like to see how much money they put into the property, how much they could sell it for right now. I don't know what the property looked like before, so maybe I'll go back and watch some of her other videos and see what they've done with it. But I don't think this is a terrible option to turn it into a long-term rental. I own about $4 million worth of long-term rentals, and those are never going to be Airbnbs. I do it because I want to diversify my portfolio, and this could be a really good option. I don't know if they own any other properties, but yeah, a long-term rental could be a really good idea.
I don't even want to encourage people to pay that much in taxes when they can just go to a hotel. It's going to be cheaper to get a couple hotel rooms for you and your friends, you know? So turning it into a long-term rental makes a lot more sense. You might be like, now why not sell it? Number one reason is because I love this house. I put so much work into it, and I also love Palm Springs. I could see myself maybe retiring here one day. So I don't want to let go of it when I already have this house and have put so much work into it and have locked in this low interest rate and all this, you know, no, I don't want to sell it.
Okay, really good point right there. There's a good point and a bad point. Number one, she locked in a really low interest rate. I'm guessing that depending on when she bought it, she's probably in the 3 to 5% interest rate. Any of my properties that I have that are in the 3 to 4, 5% interest rates, like I'm not even thinking thinking about doing anything with him. I have one property that is for sale just because it was an underperforming Airbnb, but that's the only reason why. I really like how she's thinking this through. Shelby, this is good to think about. You have a really low interest rate. Essentially, you can beat inflation this way. But the comment that rubs me a little bit the wrong way, and it's difficult because it's easy to get attached to a property that you've put, like she said, blood, sweat, and tears into. I refuse to get attached to any of my properties because there is a number for everything. If you came to me with a property that I absolutely love and I say I'm never getting rid of it, it's a $2 million property, and you come to me and say, hey, look, I'll give you $4 million for it. My wife wants to live here. This is our dream house. I promise you, I'm selling that fucking house. I guarantee you, I'm selling that house, and I'm hop, skipping, and jumping and 1031 exchanging it into a property that is much bigger, much better, and something like that. So I would say for you guys that are looking to invest in properties, never get emotionally attached to any property because there's always 1,000 more properties out there.
Me, I actually would like to use it again. It really just does not make sense to sell financially right now. If I sold it, I would just pay so much in capital gains taxes, and then I would go to buy something and I wouldn't even be able to get anything as good because the interest rates are so high. It doesn't really make sense to sell. But long-term renting it turns out, is looking like it would be quite profitable.
Okay, so I want to make a correction before we get into the profitability here. What she is talking about is selling the property and then paying capital gains tax. What she fails to mention is that there's a program called a 1031 exchange. And what a 1031 exchange is you have 45 days following the sale of your property to identify a replacement property, and you can defer those taxes. You can just roll them into the next property and not have to pay any of those capital gains taxes. And you can do this with art. There's a lot of different ways that you can use a 1031 exchange. For example, the property that I'm selling right now, when that property sells, I will have already found a property in that time period, in those next 30 to 45 days, that I can get under contract and not have to pay those capital gains taxes. So just so you guys know, there is an opportunity to sell a house, roll over that equity into the next property, and defer those capital gain taxes. You just have to close on that replacement property in 180 days, and you're good to go there. Now, let's check out the numbers that she's gonna get on this long-term rental, or what she's expecting to make.
Probably more profitable than Airbnb ever was, actually. I actually met one of my neighbors recently, and he told me that he turned his Airbnb into a long-term rental, and he's making more. He's making more because you don't have to pay all the expenses. You don't have to pay for the utilities. Simply Safe, YouTube TV, the insane electric bill, the gas bill. Instead, the tenant pays for what they want and what they use. And the mortgage for my house right now, it's $3,200 a month. And Redfin and Zillow think I could rent this long-term for $6,200 a month. So if you guys haven't followed along with the Airbnb journey, you know I'm just barely breaking even. So to be making...
Holy shit. Shelby, I'm sorry, and I understand why you're quitting Airbnb. I definitely would. Having any properties where I'm breaking even every single month, there's just zero chance in hell. This can be avoided very easily, just for you guys, for future reference. This can be avoided if you do proper market research. And again, I don't know what kind of research that they did on this property, and I'm not here to pick fun at anybody or shove anybody in the dirt. I think that this is great that Shelby is being transparent, because there are people that are losing an Airbnb right now, and I'm sure that a lot of people are experiencing what she's experiencing. With my properties and with what I teach my students, because I have a coaching program, we quadruple verify through using a lot of different data. I have a software coming out as well, where we're able to kind of pinpoint on average what we should be making on a property every single month, whether it's through rental arbitrage or through purchasing a property. There are other houses in that street, zip code, city that look like yours, that may have the same amenities as yours, and you can see the exact numbers on how much they're actually making and be able to do, put it into a profit calculator and determine how much money on average you will be making every single year. I really do wonder if they did this, or if they kind of just were like, hey, look, let's get our first Airbnb and see how this goes. Either way, it's become apparent. I mean, the numbers tell the whole story here. If you can make $3,000 a month in profit on a property that you're long-term renting, where you're gonna have literally zero headache besides them calling you 4 or 5 times a year to fix random shit, versus you're breaking even every single month on Airbnb and having to do the legwork and the communicating and all the cleaning and the turnover. Yeah, this is definitely the right move, Shelby. I'm with you here, sister.
$2,000 a month in cash flow. Now, I'm skeptical if that's actually possible, but we'll see. That would be way better than doing Airbnb. Plus, I wouldn't have to deal with all of the hassles that come with running an Airbnb. It's really not that bad, but you do think about it a lot, and there's always...
She just had a pop-up right here that says, and I wouldn't have a property manager. That's probably where most of her money is going. Property managers in this area probably charge between 15 to 30% on average, so let's just call it 20%. 20% of the gross revenue that's coming in. not of profit, but 20% of gross revenue. It is extremely easy. I self-manage all of my properties. I think that we're up to, how many Airbnbs? I think I'm at like 18 or 19 Airbnbs now, right? And we self-manage all of them. I self-managed them first, then I hired my mom. I retired her from Costco, and now she runs the day-to-day activities. But we save that 20% because we go in-house with everything. And if you have the right systems, automations, teams, software, and hardware lined up, you set it up once and you can use it forever. There is zero reason to be paying a property manager ever. It's not like your life is exponentially easier with these property management groups. There's still headaches. They still call you when shit needs to be fixed. The only thing that they're doing is communicating with the guest, which is cakewalk easy, and they are communicating with the cleaning teams and making sure that the turnover goes good, and then ordering new supplies if that needs to happen. Other than that, complete BS, zero reason to be paying a property management group.
Comes up that you need to be repurchasing, and with a long-term rental, there's a lot less of that. Additionally, just on a personal note, my parents live here in Palm Springs now, and my sister and her boyfriend also bought a house here, so I tend to just visit them and stay with them now than even use this house anyway. So I don't really care as much about having it as like a partial use vacation home. So here are my own personal thoughts.
Okay, good point that she's bringing up. Her sister lives in town, her mom lives in town, and so a lot of people, especially let me tell you a great story. So my parents, after watching me do Airbnb and blow up this operation, they were like, hey Blake, we want to get a house up by Big Bear, maybe somewhere by the lake, somewhere that we can go. We love going outdoors, we love snowboarding and skiing, so we want to go up to Big Bear. And I said, okay, well, let's look at the numbers. And the numbers did not really pencil out up there. There's a couple of issues with that Big Bear market. So I told them, I said, hey, look, why don't you guys just buy an Airbnb? You'll still get the tax write-offs. Let's find the highest cash flowing property, okay? So instead of making $2,000 a month on average on that Big Bear property, let's find somewhere that makes $3,000 to $4,000 a month. And then what you can do is go have whatever lavish vacations you want at Big Bear and go stay at a way nicer house. Guys, unless my houses are open, I'd never stay at them. I don't block off time so I can go vacation there. If I want to go vacation, I'll go rent somewhere else because my properties are there to make me money. I have zero emotional attachment to them. I don't give a fuck if I stay there or not. Those properties are not for me to vacation at. They are for business use only.
On this bill, even though nobody asked, I'm gonna give them to you anyway. So this bill is to provide funding for affordable housing for the labor force. And honestly, if it does that and everything works out according to plan, I think that's great. Like, of course, we need more affordable housing and teachers should be able to afford a house. I think we all agree with that. I think the issue is, I genuinely don't think it's going to do that. California makes a lot of money in taxes to begin with. It's estimated they're gonna bring $130 billion, with a B, in income taxes alone for 2022. So that's not to mention property taxes, sales tax. So I don't think the issue is funding. I think the money is there to build affordable housing. It's been there. California has always made a ton of money. It's just not ever being spent in the right way. And I don't wanna get too much into this, but like—
Fine, I'll get into it since she doesn't want to. California is a motherfucking joke. If you're in the highest tax bracket, you're basically paying 41 or 43% in federal taxes plus 12 or 13% or 11% on California taxes, whatever it ends up being. They want you to give up 52, 53% of your money to the government, a good portion of that to California. It is absolutely ridiculous. The roads are still fucked up. People aren't getting paid enough. There's homeless everywhere. And so yeah, definitely a really good idea to really go in and tax these big bad Airbnb guys so that we can build some affordable housing. It's fucking bullshit. Nothing ever gets done in this state. I love California. It's one of the best places on earth. I think for me, it's the best place to live ever. But can we all agree here that this is a fucking joke? Like literally, this is a scam.
Like clearly it's not. If we don't have affordable housing now, when we have so much money going to the government here, I personally think it's not fair to put the entire brunt of the lack of affordable housing on short-term rentals when so many things affect it. It's zoning laws, it's the fact that there's no incentives to build, so there's not enough new construction. It's the people who are landlords that own 10 to 100 units and just are hoarding those forever. Like, short-term rentals are a relatively new thing, and we've had an affordable housing problem long before short-term rentals. I think some people think that if everybody quits Airbnb, suddenly housing is going to be affordable, but it's not, because there's so many things that affect the housing market. I think what we're actually going to see happen is the city's going to bring in less revenue. There's going to be probably less Airbnbs. The reality of Palm Springs, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, but this is the truth about Palm Springs. Most of these homes are second houses. They're second houses for rich people. They're used for a few months of the year, and then the people who own them go back to Canada or Chicago or wherever they came from. It would be great if they can build more affordable housing, but I want to see the plan of how they're going to do it. There is no plan. I looked through the whole bill. There's no specific plans of how they're going to spend the money. I even reached out to the office of the senator that wrote it to interview her about it. They seemed interested actually in an interview, but then they ended up not responding. At this point,
ladies and gentlemen, welcome to California. Zero things are organized here. You have no fucking clue where the money's going ever. She's absolutely right. I mean, there's consistently been an affordable housing problem. In fact, I'm an affordable housing investor. I own 20 Section 8 units, and Section 8 is a government-funded program, subsidized, and it's for people. They have vouchers, and it's affordable housing. But I mean, come on, guys. It's Palm Springs, and Palm Springs has already been a headache anyways. You have people that are fighting, all these old people that live there that go to these city council meetings that they don't want all these young people coming into town, and so you will see what happens in these markets. I mean, when they try and limit the people that are coming in and bringing money into their economy, you'll see how the economy gets affected extremely quickly. I'm talking expeditiously.
I can't actually tell if this thing has passed or not. I'm not here to convince you to vote on anything because this actually isn't a bill that we as citizens can vote on. All in all, I don't love this bill. Of course, I'm biased as a short-term rental owner, but I also think it's just gonna discourage people from traveling to Palm Springs. A lot of my guests are from out of state. They're from places that are really cold. Chicago, Oregon, Canada. And if they're having to pay 26% in taxes for a house, I actually think they might go to Florida or something. Let's be real, California probably already has the money for affordable housing. They just never allocate it to that. A reality, whichever comes first. Hopefully affordable housing. In Texas, they are throwing up new houses all the time because it's easier to. And if they made it a little bit easier to here, streamline the permit process, make it faster, easier, cheaper to build, then it's just simple supply and demand. All
right, let's summarize this video, guys. First of all, Shelby, I really appreciate you making this video and kind of voicing the concerns that you have and kind of shedding light because, again, there's a lot of people that are struggling right now with Airbnb. My best pieces of advice for you guys would be to look in markets. So, by living in California, I primarily invest out of state. My properties are in Tennessee, New York, Florida, and they're in these markets like Destin and the Panhandle, and they're in the Smoky Mountains, in these areas where there is zero chance that they're going to ban Airbnbs, restrict them, and even if they did restrict them, I would find a way around the restrictions. There's a lot of ways around these restrictions, which is actually helpful because it reduces the supply of properties, but the demand is still there. Now, this tax thing, it's a bitch. It's gonna be annoying, and hopefully it doesn't pass, but it hasn't passed yet. My best piece of advice, I absolutely agree, Shelby, you're doing the right thing here. I don't think that quitting Airbnb is forever is the right option because, again, myself, I've seen this business. There's a million opportunities right now. What I'm seeing out there is a lot of fear in the markets, people like what you were explaining, afraid of the interest rates. But, I just bought 6 properties waterfront in Florida that were listed at $10 million. I got them for $8.6 million. I got my interest rate's like 8.25%, but it still cash flows. Like it really, the numbers pencil out. It's gonna do $1.3 million in revenue. And it did that last year as well. So the opportunities are there. They're big, they're small, but they're absolutely there, especially because there's fear in the water right now. So I think she's doing the right thing here. Shelby, good job recognizing that this short-term rental thing was not working out with this exact property. I wish that it did work out for you. I don't think that there are many changes that you can make to your property to make it be more explosive, especially when you could pick up an extra $2,000 to $3,000 a month in profit by making it a long-term rental. So if you appreciated this video and you want to see some more breakdowns of other folks that are talking about Airbnb and walking through their deals, let me know. Guys, do me a favor, give me a follow, a like, and leave a comment on whatever video you want to see next. I'm Mr. 4 to 8, and I'll see you in the next video.